welcome to another episode of CineBeards. I am your host, Jason Musicanth. With me, as always, are Dion van Heerden.
Hi!
And Marcus Kneef.
I identify as a helivet.
Okay,
Helivet!
this week's episode, we're going to focus, seeing as Tomb Raider is coming out this Friday.
Which is probably going to be bad.
Oh, it's almost definitely going to be
I'm
bad.
looking forward to how bad it is.
Are we just going to call everything that's going to be bad the next Geostorm?
I wasn't going to
because
say that.
Geostorm was entertaining.
Yes, it was. It actually, in that way, it wasn't a bad movie because it did what movies should do.
That's exactly what we said during the episode, Jason.
I know.
Yeah.
It was a callback, Dion.
Nah.
Your callbacks are shit and you should feel bad.
Fine, you guys run the podcast.
Fine, we will, and we'll get better.
Go ahead.
Fine. So this week we're talking about video game movies.
Why are we even doing that?
I suddenly feel super engaged now. I don't know what's changed, but I just suddenly feel like
I
drawn
hate you
into
guys
this
so much.
podcast.
Why are we friends?
Because nobody else wants to
Throwing
be our
around
friends.
some big words here.
That's the same joke you made in the promo, Dion.
Yeah, but that's a callback.
Fuck off. I'm done. I hate you both.
What do you care? You'll be back next week.
Alright, so video game movies. Those are usually pretty good, right? It makes sense.
I don't even want to engage with you right now. You're the video game movies of people.
Oh, savage.
That is.
So it might be good one day.
Yeah, but Tomb Raider's coming out this Friday, so we're going to talk about
you were
video game
good
movies.
in the 80s, but I'll get to that.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, so, why are video game movies so shit?
Because video games are an interactive storytelling medium, and films inherently need a 3-act structure. And most of video games' appeal is through emergent experiences, whereas films are more rigidly structured and also made by studios that don't necessarily understand the appeal or their target market of video games.
Thank you, the architect from Matrix Reloaded.
Wait, let me just check this. Bethesda VP of Marketing Pete Hines?
Surprise! I've been playing this for a year.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Player
thing
agency is a...
Yeah.
The thing, like, the problem with most video game movies is they try and translate the video gaminess to film.
Yeah.
Like, they'll either ignore the story that's in the game itself and rewrite a new one, or lean into it so hard that it becomes ridiculous because it makes sense while you have that player agency, you're performing those actions, the story kind of gets a pass.
Yeah.
But when you're just watching the story, like, sometimes it's just like shit.
Yeah, no, a lot of the best games are about the visceral experience of playing it. Even games with great stories tend to be fairly convoluted. They don't necessarily lend themselves to a 3-act structure, and part of the appeal of experiencing them is its challenge release.
Yeah.
And as a film where it's just sort of a linear experience, just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Unless you actively make the film hard to watch.
Well, they've gone a long
does
way.
Does that mean Uwe Boll makes good video game movies?
No, those aren't hard to watch. I'm talking about physically straining to watch.
Oh, you gotta concentrate to watch, not they're hard to watch
Yes.
because they're so bad.
Yeah, no, it's got to be it's got to take effort to watch. Basically, if they do that, a Dark Souls movie could work. Where you literally have to fight in your seat to watch the movie.
Yeah, it's a movie that maybe 10% of people actually finish.
Yeah.
My question is not so much why video game movies are bad. My question is what would constitute a good video game movie that makes it a video game movie and not just a movie?
Well, I think it's just because of what it's based on. Because I think video game movies are very much in the
like
same vein as comic book movies.
Because then it's like saying, not really though. Like it's like saying a book movie. I mean, people don't say that.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, what I think elevates a video game movie. I mean, I'm just gonna pull out the big gun.
Sorry to interrupt, but it's because comic books they're visual and they're passive medium.
Yeah.
They're not an interactive medium, so they pretty much fall into the same category as as books, as graphic novels or whatever. Like, and especially since they're already visual, like the translation actually makes the most sense of any translation. So like, yeah, what would...
No. I'm just going to put out the big gun right at the get-go. The Last Starfighter, a movie from the early 80s. It is, in essence, a video game movie without being based on a specific video game. The basic premise is there is an arcade machine that's, I think it's at a gas station in the movie itself. And this kid gets so good at the game that he gets beamed up into space.
I know this.
And he has to lead that army.
It's that South Park episode.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Has to lead the army against the evil alien invaders, and it turns out the good aliens put the machine there on Earth to find someone proficient enough to actually lead their forces.
Yeah, that's the South Park episode.
Yeah.
Now I know what they were. Now I know what they were playing.
Yeah,
I know they're referencing.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Well,
and I mean,
if you're going with that
is a
video
great
game movie, then the first Tron falls into the same boat.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, you don't base it within a specific property. Like Wreck-It Ralph, by that token, is also a video game movie, and that's also a good one.
Yeah,
because it references and acknowledges video games are weird, aren't they, guys?
I think the other thing is a lot of modern video games are trying in their own way to sort of copy film.
Yeah.
So it's basically like putting a phrase into Google Translate and then translating it back into English. So it's going to be a little weird. It's like Call of Duty games, which sort of try very, very hard to capture, maybe with a little extra racism, but they try very hard to capture
Like the
feel,
Saving Private Ryan feel.
of a war film.
Well, that was more the early Medal of Honor, and they got pretty close with that.
They did, but the Call of Duty World War II also gets pretty close again.
But if you were to
except
then...
for the loot boxes on the beach.
Yeah, but if you were to then go back and try and translate that into a war movie, you're just removing it by 2 degrees from a war movie. So why not just make
a war movie?
A war movie, because there's nothing. Because story and stuff has to be compromised in certain ways to allow for gameplay and, as we say, player agency. Like putting that.
Yeah.
Like having, I mean, if you look at the Call of Duty games, you've always got, there's always a guy with that accent, and in Wolfenstein as well, talking to you and talking you through everything, like, oh, bloody good shot, oh, look over on the hill. Like, I mean, you can't fucking translate that to a film, but that's half the Call of Duty experience is someone with a European accent, coaxing you and rowdy voice, coaxing you through what should be fairly rudimental challenges for a covert Black Ops guy. So that why would you want to make that a movie?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I brought up Injustice, because it's a good story, but for a fighting game, because every scene kind of has to lead towards a fight.
I mean,
but
Injustice...
I would actually watch that as a movie.
Injustice...
Every scene needs to lead towards a fight.
I mean, tournament movies, like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
It's a tournament fighting movie. Those are awesome. Like, Mortal
Tekken
Kombat...
wasn't actually too bad.
Tekken wasn't too bad.
I've never seen Tekken.
Nothing like the game at all, really.
No, I just didn't know it existed. I know
and then
Street Fighter film and I know Mortal Kombat, but I never knew that.
And then you go into
and
then you get into the whole history of like Chinese cinema with the, especially in Hong Kong with the Kung Fu tournament movies throughout the 70s and 80s. Those are just fun to watch.
Well, I think with those, it's a lot easier to be like accurate in terms of tone. If you've got a fighting game that you're making into a movie, it's very easy to be, okay, it's a Kung Fu movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not kind of like changing the genre completely like they did with Doom, where they try to make it this like slow burning horror film.
Yeah, that was also during
they did, to be fair, they did base it on the slow paced Doom 3.
Yeah.
Which is a bad idea for a movie.
But it did have that awesome first person sequence.
Yeah, I mean I've rewatched that so many times.
No, I love that that's just on YouTube. I don't have to go through the whole movie.
I actually went through the whole movie this past week. I went and watched quite a few of these.
I watched it about a year ago, back when I was trying Showmax, before Netflix was official and I had to settle.
And it was also before they understood that The Rock is a comedic character.
Yeah.
A comedic actor.
Character actor.
Simplify, motherfucker.
Yeah, they just make him completely serious and a villain, and it just does not work in
Wow,
any
I
way.
forgot that.
if again, we're dealing with early 2000s Rock, I mean, the thing he was most well known for
King.
was Scorpion King before Doom.
Oh, wow.
He's really turned it around.
He
Yo,
really has.
that's amazing.
He went from being, a bad CGI monster into just a lovable human being.
Well, he's
A lovable
playing Black
human
Adam now, so
CGI
he could be
monster.
once again
Wow.
returning.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, that would be really cool. I mean, I'd love to see that, a Mortal Kombat film again, but structured
Just like
like
a tournament
like
movie,
that.
like the first one,
was
but with better
watching-
special effects.
Oh, the special effects are bad. I watched it again last night. No, 2 nights ago. I watched it, and it throws you right in. Like as the credits
yeah.
open, that song starts, and it goes full tilt. Yeah, I turned it on. I had forgotten how it started. I just pushed play, and my TV just shouted at me, "Mortal Kombat!"
And you're just like, I'm in. I'm
in.
watching Mortal
I was
Kombat
in
now.
immediately. The majority of the fights are well choreographed, and I think that's the thing that they need to do is they need to kind of stay accurate with the tone of the game, and they need to not take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Because it knew it was cheesy. I mean,
And
half
the
the
games-
time
and the
Ryan
games don't-
laughs like Tommy Wiseau.
The games don't take themselves terribly seriously as well. I mean, there's actually there's a surprising amount of comedy.
I mean, Mortal Kombat 9, the reboot, the one without the number, that was basically just retelling the story like as the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, but there was this cheesy campiness to it.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like the characters were all very serious. This is the end of the world, right? And then Jax is just like, I've got metal arms now, bitch.
But again,
played
yeah,
it in
you
years.
so you've got Mortal Kombat. It's got great characters. It's got a cool tone.
And the thing is, it also gets most of those characters right.
Yeah.
Most of them.
So that's a kind of video game form that could work. But something like I think another one that I was thinking about is something like Dishonored. Setting something in that universe.
I think that's another. Yeah, I'm just gonna steal your thunder here now. Yeah, they could do that. Take interesting universes.
Yeah.
Set stories for films in those universes without necessarily touching on the games.
Never. Well, not touching on the games. Just don't touch on the protagonist. Use the side characters that are in the game, so the people going there have familiar faces that they know. But taking part in a separate story, so you don't really feel that loss of player agency, because it's not like the character that you play is there not doing anything. It's just more world building for the game you're playing, really.
Yeah.
But I think actually for me the perfect video game film would assume you haven't played the game. You would be basing a film on a game where the universe is so interesting in and of itself. It like a book.
But I think it's
If
got
you're right-
it's got to be like the Marvel movies where you don't have to have played the game, but if you have, there's something in there.
No,
for you.
of course. But what I'm saying is they need to be aiming the way the Marvel films do at people who've never picked up a comic book.
Yeah.
People who've never played a video game. Something like the reason I say Dishonored is just because Dishonored has got such a cool world. It's got such cool lore. It's got the potential for action, suspense. It's got that whole Game of Thronesy sort of, the most recent one as well. Sort of the royal drama.
Well, actually, that argument of yours probably holds quite a bit of water, because World of Warcraft did pretty much the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And made the movie
Damn, I was gonna get to that
100% for the people who played the game and know the game.
It just became references.
Yeah,
No.
it was near impossible.
You've got to be specific. They made it for people who still actively play World of Warcraft.
Yeah,
Because
there are
I
a lot of
watched
characters
it,
in
and
there.
I know the story of the first 2 Warcraft games like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
Like Gul'dan, the Portal. I know all of the minutiae of those plots. I got lost in the Warcraft movie because they were like, this, and like, that shit's from fucking World of Warcraft. And you're trying to set this in like the world of where just the first and second orc invasions have taken place. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it only did well in China, because that's where their largest audience for World of Warcraft still is. But that's just a fact.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's an important part of it. Is I think the other thing is that studios look at these things and they don't necessarily understand. Like books, like anyone who's running a movie studio, whether they're a big reader or not, they grew up with books. They understand books.
Yeah.
I don't think that a lot of people who are senior executives at film companies necessarily grew up, maybe now more, but especially 10 years, up to 10 years ago, grew up playing games, understood video games. There's this idea of it as being sort of, hey kids, you know, that kind of marketing
Hello,
thing.
fellow children.
Yeah, it's exactly
on their back.
I think it's that disconnect where they're not really sure, like, okay, cool, this is a big thing. The game industry is bigger than the film industry now. The kids with the games, right? So, like, Doom, that's one I've heard of. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, hell, yeah, cool, badass, corporations.
Ooh, we can't do hell, then we have to make it...
Make it Mars!
Make it what is
Well,
Mars
it's
in the
Mars,
game, but
but-
yeah.
like, oh no, they're not demons from hell. They are. That sounds silly for a movie. Let's make
Science
them
gone wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
they made it science that was bad and not
Yeah.
religion.
More
Yeah.
science.
Yeah, so it's that disconnect, not realizing. I mean, Doom doesn't work. I don't think they should make a film of Doom. Like,
no, because
it-
main part of Doom is
it's all about that gameplay.
it's all about gameplay. It's
Something like
it's got to be a game that's very much story focused, where the gameplay is secondary to the story.
yeah,
Something
or
like a Naughty Dog game.
Yeah, but you see,
I
I
was
have
going to
a-
say that, like the Uncharted games,
The
for instance, they would
they're
make.
making an Uncharted movie at the moment.
Well,
With-
they've been
with-
making an Uncharted movie for about
a
Yeah,
6 or
decade.
7 years
but they
now.
got Tom Holland like tied to it now and things like that. And it is apparently moving forward.
I could actually buy Tom Holland as a young Nathan Drake.
But the
You couldn't afford
the director of Naughty Dog is like, yeah, that Uncharted movie is gonna do great, but the Last of Us movie, like, no, I really hope it never gets made.
Well, I think they're also not. I don't know how it is now, but I know there was a interview probably about 2 years ago where they said Naughty Dog are not involved with the film.
Yeah, they're not, but they're because Sony's got the licenses
Yeah.
and things. So they're like, he's very happy with the direction that the Uncharted movie is going in, because it lends itself to that kind of sort of cinematic thing. But with The Last of Us, they've already told the story as well as they possibly could, and making it into a movie isn't going to add anything to it.
Uncharted is like this cool world. It's not particularly original or anything like that, but it's open enough that you can tell a new adventure in it.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of what the character does isn't up to player agency.
Yeah,
It's a
it's
very linear
very,
storyline,
Yeah.
and that's a big thing.
So I think
I
that
don't
that
know,
would be
like-
that would be a good licensing tying, I think. But I also don't think that the Uncharted world, like, you could make an Uncharted film and call it the Uncharted movie, or you can make that exact same movie,
called Indiana Jones.
yeah,
Yeah.
and change the names and call it anything else. I think that probably is the middle ground where it'll probably make a really great adventure film, but then is it still really a video game movie? Because, like, what about that world is sort of unique?
Well, nothing, because Uncharted is basically the lost adventures of Indiana Jones already.
Yeah, I mean,
Only
that's
with more genocide.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they set out to do, was
Yeah.
to make a cool Indiana
Which is fine.
Jones game
Which
without Indiana
is
Jones.
perfectly fine. I'm down for that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've played, thanks to Jason, through the Uncharted trilogy on PS3. Those games are really good. But I don't know if you could readapt them back into movies, because then they'll just be second-rate Indiana Jones movies.
Well, you can get, what's his name?
Well,
Nathan
film nerds.
Fillion.
Fillion.
I think he'd be He'd be great in there.
No,
Somewhere.
he'd be a perfect.
I just keep thinking about him.
Get Bruce Campbell to play the old guy.
Yeah, just get him and Nathan Fillion together. If
you could
And then
Uncharted,
just film it.
yeah, and then he just
Like, if you could de-age Nathan Fillion
Yeah.
to be like Drake in, let's say, his early 30s, and you get Bruce Campbell to play Sully, I
Well,
would go
let's
watch
be
that.
honest. If you could de-age Nathan Fillion, just get him to play Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
like, if you're gonna de-age him for any character, just make him Hal Jordan.
through
please.
magic or science.
Yeah.
I think that would be cool. What games would you like to see as films?
Honestly, I think the easiest would be Uncharted. Mm-hmm.
Do you think
the
film
thing is, my
would give
favorite
it?
games?
Would Uncharted the film give you something that Uncharted the game hasn't?
If it's following the exact story of one of the Uncharted games, no. But if it's a new story in the Uncharted, like, I guess, timeline, then yes. Because I am invested enough in those characters to care what they're doing, even if I'm not controlling one of them.
Yeah, and then I think that's a good balance then, because
then-
it seems accessible enough that anyone could
So
jump into
almost
it.
like, I'm just going to pitch this here. Maybe you have a young Nathan Drake played by a young up-and-coming actor like a Tom Holland type. And it's
Yeah.
one of his first adventures where he really gets to know Sully or something like that.
That
you
would be a
watch.
really great idea for a movie, and I'm sure the creators of Uncharted would very much support something like that.
Good job, Marcus. Go sell that. What else could possibly
But
be made?
I don't want to
into a
see
good
any
film?
kind of RPG being made in because
God,
they've
no.
got blank slate characters so that you can impose upon them, your
Yeah.
beliefs and your.
TV series I would buy though. Like Netflix is currently working on a TV series based on The Witcher.
No, thank you. Unsubscribe.
No.
You're not even subscribed.
You're not. Firstly, you're not subscribed, and secondly, they're not basing it on the games.
The books.
They're basing it on the books, on
Okay,
the
I'm
short
back
stories.
in. Resubscribe.
Yeah.
I'm back
They're
in there.
only using the fact that The Witcher 3 sold a bajillion motherfucking copies.
I don't know if it was that many.
Okay, good, because book Geralt is a lot easier to like
I
than
don't. Yeah, I
video
don't.
game
yeah.
Geralt.
The sort
But
of.
I guess that's because they kind of make it more of a blank slate for the player to kind of.
Yeah.
I think that's a. I think that's a good idea.
Well, yeah, I
Doing
don't wanna,
a
I don't
Game
wanna,
of Thrones kind of thing with a property like that.
No, it lends itself. They're like all the political intrigue and everything in the books as well. It's
Yeah,
hardcore stuff.
But then you got to do the thing that I was saying, where you don't focus on the protagonist from the games or from the books in this case. Let him like breeze through every now and then, so you know he's
Yeah.
a part of the world. But focus on the side characters.
Well, I mean, how can I, like when I saw they just recently sent the script for the pilot to Netflix, for approval or whatnot, the writers, and like in the first episode, they're already setting up Geralt, Triss, Yennefer, Ciri, a couple of the dwarf characters. And because someone asked it in an upcoming and following tweet, yes, Roach is also in there, his faithful steed. So they're already like hitting the ground, the running, almost introducing a bunch of characters in the pilot already, which you need to do to sort of.
I'm a little less sour on it now. Then
Yeah. Like you really should follow it, or just listen to me when I talk.
that seems like the worst idea.
If only there was some sort of outlet where you could talk and then record it and then put it up online somewhere so that I could
Oh my
listen
God,
to it.
But
Right.
also, like, if there was like another more charming, more handsome person speaking with him, and then just this third guy.
What did one of the McElroys guess?
They're so handsome,
Yeah.
especially Justin.
Is the third guy a Paul brother then?
Yeah.
No, so that's
where we're
happening.
going,
That's
yeah.
that's going to be
That's cool.
interesting.
I like that. I think series make sense.
Yeah,
I
it's
think a little
specifically-
more. Films are just so, by their very
honestly, if you
nature,
were
so
doing a-
restrictive.
If you were doing a series and you were, say, focusing on side characters and shit like that, like an extended Mass Effect thing could work.
I don't know.
Because that world's got enough lore built into it like outside of what the player themselves is
Yeah, but-
actually doing.
But Jason, that already exists. It's called Star Trek.
Yeah, I
And
know.
there's been, Jesus, how many different iterations and seasons?
Yeah,
and,
I don't know, Mass Effect.
like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
not the
just
biggest fan of the
feel-
games because the gameplay just did not hook me at all.
But the thing is, there's a ton of lore, but it's like something like Dishonored. I think it feels like a world, like a really cool world that I want to see more of. And something like Mass Effect, as you say, it just sort of feels
It's
like
another space
another
opera.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I love the Mass Effect trilogy. Like I'll just put it right out there. But there's nothing particularly special about the universe. What's special about it is hashtag I heart Garrus, because Garrus is Bay. I'm using internet vernacular.
You are speaking all kinds of gibberish to me right now.
Garrus?
I don't know what a Garrus is. I don't. What's a hashtag? You said
hash brown.
The characters are great, but you could take those characters or just the traits, put them in different bodies in another universe. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are some of those character analogs in Star Trek Discovery. Like, I haven't watched enough of it to make those links, but I'm pretty sure there's a Garrus type in there or a Tali type in there.
I don't know, Dion. You watch Star Trek Discovery. Is there one in there that you would describe as hashtag Bay?
No.
Sorry, Marcus.
I'm just trying to connect to the kids, man. Let me put down the skateboard I've been carrying on my shoulder.
When I put this episode up, I'm gonna have hashtag Bay in it.
Any other franchises you think could work? The one that I feel like could work, but probably they've probably spent all that goodwill now is Resident Evil. Like just because I like a good mansion mystery and I like zombies.
Yeah, they let Anderson it's Paul W,
Paul
right?
W. Anderson,
Paul
yeah.
W, not PT. I sometimes get those two confused to my own great chagrin.
For a while, he went just as Paul Anderson, and
Yeah.
then
And
brought the W in at a
actually,
later
in all
stage.
fairness, I guess, in some ways, like the perfect Resident Evil film's already been made, and it's not a zombie film. It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in terms of Resident Evil 7.
And single location horror movies.
But
I mean,
as far as video game movies go, the first Resident Evil wasn't bad.
Yeah, I didn't like it. In fairness, I watched it a long time ago, and I had never played the games, but I was not particularly.
I liked the first one because it was just the right amount of ridiculous.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to that. It didn't take itself too seriously.
I think that's probably why I should rewatch it. I
with
think
the
when
laser-
it came out, I
Is
don't
it the
think
first one with the lasers
Yeah,
which has to die?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
fucking cool.
I think at that
Right.
point I wasn't sort of mature enough as a viewer to realize it's not taking itself seriously, and I think I just thought it was stupid.
The CG has aged about as well as the CG in Mortal Kombat.
Outstandingly.
But the movie itself is entertaining enough.
Okay. I should check that out.
In terms of, like I said, Resident Evil movies, like closer to the games, like specifically 1 and 7, Blumhouse makes that movie 7 times a year already. They just never call it Resident Evil.
Yeah.
A single location horror film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's fair enough. So yeah, what could video games bring to film that make them in any way special?
See, that's the thing is, video games in sort of a way improve upon film because they add the player interaction. So it's not like when you're adapting a book to a movie, you're adding in the element of visuals to it. To make a video game a movie, you actually have to actively take away one of the elements of it.
I think you super hit the nail on the head there. I think that's probably 110% it.
Yeah.
Is
That's a critical hit to use video game
But I mean,
parlance.
something like, look at anything else. As you say, books. I mean, you're losing a lot of story, which people always bitch about. But
But you're
essentially,
adding another-
you're adding like music. You're adding visuals. You're adding something different to it, or at least replacing. And I think you're right. Video games are it's going to sound terrible on a film podcast, but I think video games in many ways are a better medium for storytelling than film. Just because, or at least a far more...
Depending on the story.
Interactive.
Yeah.
No, obviously, like, it depends on execution, but I mean, film only has so much potential.
Yeah, there's far more audience interaction with the video.
For storytelling, whereas a video game can tell... There's no ceiling to how complex or intricate a story is that video games can tell.
Yeah, like a movie will go, okay, you know, point A to point B. Video game, you're to point A and you're point B, but you're free to explore everywhere around those 2 points as you get there.
Yeah. So you're right. Video games are far less restrictive than any other medium of storytelling, and I think that's probably why we're unlikely to see. Because in my opinion, the thing that I've come into this with is there's not really such a thing as a good video game movie, because nobody can really say like what they would be. It's like which of these is going to hurt the least.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Like, it's sort of, how do we make a film based on this franchise that doesn't destroy it, and it's always going to be disappointing in some way.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it ultimately comes down to a branding exercise. Take an Indiana Jones type film, you know, use those characters, call it Uncharted.
Yeah.
It's not Uncharted, but it's enough of a good branding exercise. There's familiarity for players.
Do you think it'll then hurt the film if you've got a really good adventure film and you slap Uncharted on there? Do you think it'll hurt it by
as
people
long as
going in
you
without that element of interaction? Then
as long as they're free to not be inhibited by the games, I guess. But yeah, I don't think players of the games are necessarily always going to be the best audience for a film.
Yeah,
because
they're
you're
losing something going
yeah,
in.
Exactly. Whereas people like I'm a big reader, so I know the feeling of being disappointed by a film adaptation of a book, but ultimately it's like you have to go in knowing it's such a different experience. Whereas with video games are so cinematic, plus extra elements. They've got that cinematic music, they've got the cinematic framing, they've got acting, they've got everything.
And they're just getting better at that as well.
Yeah, whereas films, I mean, you've got your, for the most part, I'm talking about mass market films now as well. Like, you know, you've got basically got your 3-act structure, and you have a lot of conventions, and even the most creative film can't break the fact that you're still watching a film. It's a static, pre-made thing that you have to experience in a linear fashion.
No, that's the difference. I mean, that's why the best Star Wars story ever told was KOTOR 2. It just is. Fight me.
I don't think anyone.
No, I'm talking to the audience. Fight me in the comments.
Yeah, take him on, Thomas. Kick his ass.
Kick his ass, Thomas.
Thomas is probably on my side on this.
Probably, almost definitely.
100% of our audience agrees.
KOTOR 1 and 2 have some of the most intricate, lore-heavy Star Wars stories. It's basically a Star Wars fan's wet dream. You know, it's what they... Like, the super nerds want this so much in all the movies, but the movies are limited by the scope of what a movie can do.
And then look what happens when a film actually attempts to add some nuance and depth.
Oh, yeah, no.
And like, oh, no. Just like that.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
That's all I heard.
Yep, that's pretty much what they did.
Yeah. But the bad guy must be bad, and the good guy must be goody, and the goody must kill the baddie.
Yeah. I mean, KOTOR has the best twist. Oh my god, if you haven't played it, like, you should get on that. It's almost 2 decades old.
Shut up. I didn't have a gaming machine.
I don't have
2
an
decades
excuse,
ago.
but still, shut up.
I'm not going to spoil it for you guys.
Don't spoil it for us, Marcus.
Marcus, come on.
Jesus, the fact that you're not going to spoil it for us is in itself a spoiler.
Now we know that there's something to spoil.
And now we know you're not going to spoil it. Fuck. Ruin.
0 out of 10.
Mate, you could, yeah, but just on that, like, you could never adapt, like, just, I think Star Wars is a great example. You've got the games that tell their stories their way, and you've got the movies. You could never adapt one of the Star Wars games into a movie.
Yeah.
Even the most cinematic of them, which would arguably be Force Unleashed. That's the closest to like movie-like of the games. Even if you adapt that, it's going to be a pile of shit. Mostly because your Starkiller is a shit character, but partly because there's too much to adapt into a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing where games have hours upon hours to tell their stories and stuff. You know, I mean, books kind of have that thing, but still, it's.
But I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, it's
It
already
depends on the author. I mean, Tolkien loves describing hills for pages and pages and
and
pages.
songs.
And songs.
Well, I mean, movies are basically, video games are basically the love child of books and film and like real life. Like
Imagination.
it's sort of got like it's got everything from all three of those.
Yeah, and I think the reason the Star Wars ones work so well is because Star Wars were like the movies first, and then the games came after.
Yeah, and then that
helps.
that
So
There was
already-
already games in the movie
there was
universe
already-
than to try and do
Yeah.
movies.
There was already a visual language associated with
Yeah.
the franchise.
which I think why people hate Battlefront so much. How do you take something so delicious and lore heavy and rich
and turn it into a Battlefield game.
and then I mean the second one that has a single player campaign, which I just ended up watching on YouTube, or half of it, because it's boring. It's really bad.
And they
really
had
bad
Amy
and
Hennig
generic.
writing it. Can you believe that? He knows who Amy Hennig is. The writer of
Oh, yeah.
Uncharted.
Yeah.
Ha!
Oh, shit,
Jason.
Like, EA bought her and she was going to work on...
Yeah. Buy people, Marcus.
Yes,
EA can!
EA can.
EA has the money to do that. They gave her own studio, Motive Studios. They were working with Visceral on... I believe the project was then called Ragtag. Then they pulled her off...
So you're telling me EA had good talent and then meddled with them to the point where they put out a bad product?
Isn't she the one that was? I'm confused now. Isn't she the one that was going to be writing the big Visceral single player
Yes.
Star Wars
Yes,
game?
yes, she was
Yes,
going
yes,
to
yes.
write that, but then because EA was, I'm just going to go just the
Yeah.
highlights. So Visceral was working on this game. Jade Raymond, ex Ubisoft, and Amy Hennig were both put in charge of Motive Studios. Jade Raymond coming from Assassin's Creed. Most notably, she was the one who directed 2, I believe. The good one.
I was about to say the good one.
The good one. And Amy Hennig, famous for writing on the Uncharted games.
Wasn't Jade also involved with Black Flag?
I believe she was. But basically, the two of them
Yeah.
together, they know how to technically run a studio and direct a game and creative input. They're a power couple,
Yeah.
basically. They were initially brought in to assist Visceral with their single-player Star Wars game. Then the Visceral Star Wars game started going to shit for unknown reasons.
Multiplayer.
Jason Schreier wrote a very great in-depth thing about that over on Kotaku. Go read it. And then basically Amy Hennig got pulled from there and said, okay, you are now writing the campaign for Battlefront 2.
Okay, so that's the part that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Alright, I did not know that.
So they meddled with a creative to the point where she handed in a subpar story, even though that woman can write. I mean, she understands video games narrative.
Yeah. No, I think it's because those games are very much like graphics first.
Yeah, and everyone
Everything's
could see
visual.
that twist coming. Like, I called, like, before the game was even out, I was like, you're going to play 1 or 2 missions as the Empire, and then you're going to join the Rebels, because that's what always fucking happens.
And they were so insistent that, like, no, that's not what's gonna happen.
That's not what's gonna...
Yeah,
Fuck
they
you,
went
EA.
out of their way to
Yeah.
specifically say, like, you know, we're not half-assing it, like, you're really going dark.
Yeah.
And then you're a good guy.
Fuck you, EA.
That is lame.
Well, that was a nice visit to Escape from Mount Backlog Corner.
Yeah.
EA can eat a bag of dicks.
Eat a bag of
Eat a bag of dicks. backs.
They can share it with Warner Brothers.
No, they can get their own backs.
Their own bags.
No, don't you think it would be more?
Don't touch Warner Brothers bag of dicks.
All right. So what else do we have to say about
make that
video
a-
game movies?
Uwe Boll.
Yeah, I was about to say we basically we solved the problem. We figured it out. We're geniuses, but also we can't close the episode without mentioning Uwe Boll.
Who's Uwe Boll?
He is a German. I don't want to say filmmaker,
All right.
but he's a German dude who's made a few films.
He's inflicted films.
Yeah, and
For tax fraud reasons.
allegedly.
No, confirm.
Yeah, but I'm staying out of hot water and things.
Yeah, fine.
But yeah, because of German tax laws and shit like that, filming movies there was super lucrative, especially if your movie did not make more than its budget back.
Yeah.
So he specialized in horrible films based on video games that netted him shit tons of money. Until about 2005 when the German tax laws changed.
Yes.
But he seemed also to love the things he was working on despite them not being good.
Yeah, it was this weird thing where he always was. He seems like he really believes in the projects. You know, he loves
To the point
making
where he
movies.
continued making movies after the tax laws were changed to varying levels of poor success.
There was no success.
I said poor success because some of his
I would
films
rather.
are quite popular with the fans of, let's say,
Snuff
disenfranchised white men who want to shoot guns.
Ah.
Really? I didn't even know he had a fan base there.
Yeah, he does indeed, who believe that he is actually a good filmmaker,
Oh wow.
despite objective evidence pointing to the fact that he is the world's worst filmmaker.
Hi, you said it. You called him a filmmaker.
Damn it! No!
Although,
but yeah, there was actually a documentary made in 2010 called Raging Bull, and you're gonna fucking love this, Dion. Basically, he was upset with all the film critics calling his movies shit, so he challenged them to fight him in a boxing ring.
What?
Yeah.
oh, it gets
So-
better. It gets better.
He fought 4 of these critics in a boxing ring. 4 critics who, ranging from 17 years old to, I can't remember the higher up ages, but he fought these young critics who'd never been in a boxing ring in their lives, and he's a trained boxer. And he essentially, it's just a documentary of this 40-year-old man just beating up poor children who don't like his movies. Just knocking
Who made
them
the
out.
documentary?
I don't know.
I know.
It would
But,
have been better if he made it himself.
I know, it's just horrible.
but yeah, that's still an open challenge.
Yeah.
He has an open challenge out. Like, if you are a critic and you don't like his movies, he's more than willing to fight you. Physically.
Okay, guys.
We gotta get buff.
We gotta get-
Uwe Boll.
All right,
No.
you've been going to the gym for the last week. It's up to you, Jason. Hey guys, your workout is my warm up. I'm ready.
Whoa! Your guns just exploded there. The thing about Uwe Boll,
That's
some
amazing though. It's an open challenge. Oh my god.
some of his
Wait,
movies.
Jim Sterling's wrestling now.
Yes.
He should start boxing as well.
The thing is, Uwe Boll very theatrically retired from making movies because he set up a couple Kickstarters to fund his new films and stuff like that.
Like
and,
Postal 3.
and they were abysmal. They were completely horribly underfunded. And he put up this ranting video about fuck everyone.
Fuck Hollywood.
And fuck Hollywood, but especially fuck the people who backed him because they didn't give him enough money.
Yeah. It was a brilliant meltdown.
And yeah, that's the last the world's seen of him so far.
He sounds like an amazing person, and I think he's the one to bring back video game movies.
Look, there are one or two in some of the films there are one or two redeeming factors, only because they're so ridiculous, only Uwe Boll could have made them work. Like casting Meatloaf as a fat vampire in the first Blood Rain movie. He's lying there in this bed, like being fed grapes, with all these half-naked women writhing around him as a vampire lord. And that's just Meatloaf as I envision him.
That is just Meatloaf.
Yeah,
like
Well, I mean, it's
Uwe
got a
Boll
little-
just
it's
like
got
just
a
hit
little
it.
less
just-
racism than I'm used to from Meatloaf.
He just hit a camera in Meatloaf's house.
I mean, like he put that on film, and I'm like, that is good to watch.
He was sitting and he
I don't
was
know if you
writing
guys
that
are aware.
scene, and he was like, "This is a good idea."
I know.
Meatloaf is one of the people on the Oscar committee that gets to decide which movies win.
Really?
Yes.
Meatloaf. Interesting.
I'm just looking here at some of the other video game movies he's made.
Oh, he made a lot of the bigger flops. I mean, Alone in the Dark is probably the biggest flop he made.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, that's the most publicized.
Yeah, the most prominent. But that's because it's his worst reviewed one.
I mean,
by
Far
some
Cry
distance.
is way worse as a movie.
And then there's that horrible Dungeon Siege game.
Dungeon Siege movie, 2 of them.
I mean, movie. Yeah.
In the Name of the King, a
the
Dungeon
Name of the
Siege
King.
tale.
What?
Really
yeah.
bad. He also made a movie, and this is not based on a video game, but I just love the fact that he actually fucking went and made a movie and just called it Auschwitz.
Jeez.
That's what I was just. I was just hovering on that as well.
That's pretty on the nose.
I was just looking at a movie here, and he cast himself as Hitler.
In Auschwitz.
No, not in Auschwitz.
That would be too obvious.
In a movie called Blubberella.
Fuck off.
Wow. So yeah, I think we'll see. I think we'll see with the Uncharted film, and we'll see with Mario.
Oh, right, they are doing...
yeah.
That's the thing.
I'm very worried
Like,
about that.
we've
The more
brought
I
it up
think about it,
Illumination,
the
it's
more
just-
even though Nintendo is working with them, like I still have grave doubts. But anyway, yeah. So, but I mean, exactly as you were saying now, Marcus, like you can do that with basically anything. But that's literally the best you can hope for. Is if you have some cool characters in the game, like the game sort of got well fleshed out characters, and a cool looking world. Then the best you can hope is that they put those characters on film in a story that works for film. And it's always going to be reductive. And your best hope is that they do it in a surprising way, or a way that's going to please a lot of casual film goers. And as you said earlier, have something there for the fans as well. And just hope that it doesn't hurt too much.
I mean, they could have done that with Assassin's Creed. Like...
They could easily have done with World of Warcraft
Yeah,
too.
but I mean, just Assassin's Creed. Just think about it. Historical Batman fighting a villain. That's all you need to know to make an Assassin's Creed movie.
On paper, that really should. I mean, I know I played Assassin's Creed 2 like yonks ago at about 12 frames a second. But just from what I know of it, what's it? The Animus.
Yes.
Yeah. The thinly veiled excuse as to why a HUD exists in that world.
Yeah. So I mean, you've got that. You've got going and inhabiting the body of sort of some historical figure. Like that's like exactly as you say. Like go back into the past, be a Batman type character, do fucking badass stuff. How do you mess that up?
Yeah.
And I think that
how do you fuck that up?
I really
know.
think that comes.
I know exactly how you fuck it up. You hire Phone It In Fassi and do the same thing you do with the games and focus too much on the fucking
Desmond.
modern day bullshit sci-fi element when that's not what people are.
Yeah, didn't they make it? Didn't they make it
the only
really
reason
complicated?
That exists is so there's a HUD in the game.
Yeah, I
And
think
respawning.
I think that comes down to, again, people at top levels of management in these things not necessarily understanding the appeal of video games and thinking like, okay, cool, video game people are like they're really obsessed with
Ubisoft
lore.
made that movie themselves.
Well, I would argue that a lot of top level people at Ubisoft don't necessarily understand video games.
You Yves Guillemot.
So Yeah, I think it's just a thing of like, okay, cool, the players are super into the lore, they're super into like the story and the complicated stuff. So
Yeah,
like
even though they're not.
let's make everything more complicated and intricate than it needs to be, instead of just like make it fucking badass.
And you can have the intro sequence. Like I'm just gonna pitch to you quickly a good Assassin's Creed movie.
I'm involved.
Okay, so opening credits, you have like you started off with a corporate ad, you know, Abstergo Entertainment, The Animus. Just get that lore shit right out of the gate, at the beginning during the credits.
Can we do the Abstergo ad in kind of a Viridian Dynamics kind of
Exactly.
feel?
Yes, like exactly that type of feel good company, right? Then zoom in and you find, and they zoom down, they go into like a dark office, you see someone, you know, Animus working, and you see someone sitting there with the thing on, and then it just goes through like a weird CG wormhole that movies like doing, and bam, this guy is in, I don't know, fucking wherever you want him to be in history. Pick an interesting setting,
And then you're there till the end of the film.
and then you're there for the entire movie.
Until the book
The
ends.
entire movie, all of it.
What about a little bit in the middle?
No, all of
No,
it
I think-
is just
I think
in
you
the,
should come
the
back
historical storyline, right? And then at the very end, and this is just to tease a sequel, you can have the guy taking off the helmet and saying, "I know where XYZ is."
The
Sequel
post-credit
baited.
sequence.
The post-credit scene.
I
let's
think
put
I
it
do think
in-
you need the modern. You need the modern because you need the. Otherwise, why have it in the first place and not just set the whole movie in the past? Like the modern
Well,
stuff.
in this case, it's to set up a sequel so they can jump from time period.
Exactly.
Time period.
No, but I mean, it's still the modern. Then the modern is still.
Well, no, because
superfluous there.
the modern is still needed there as a thread which ties them together.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
but
it's-
what I'm saying is, if you only introduce the Animus at the beginning as a thing, and then the guy goes straight in, then it's not serving any purpose. Then you could literally just take the Assassin's Creed name away and just make it like a historical action film.
Well, no, because you tie it together. First film is like the first two games. The first
Yeah.
film is there where when is the first one set?
the Crusades.
Yeah, set around the Crusades. The second one set around the Renaissance period.
Yes.
And then the third movie is the culmination of those two, where whoever it was that was going back into the minds of these assassins. Now it's the conflict in the real world because it's come to a head with the things that
Yeah.
they found in those movies, and then that whole third movie is kind of set with, oh, he's got all these skills that he learned through those two lives, and now he's applying them in the modern world.
Yo, that's a hell of a huge like billion-dollar bet, like that you're only gonna make audiences care about the guy they saw at the beginning. In
No,
the
no.
third
He
film.
plays the historical characters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's him.
No, but I
living
mean,
through
but I
them,
mean,
so
like,
it's like
but still, like, it still kind of feels like then there's only a reason. You're only giving a reason for
Yeah.
the
Okay,
guy
so-
putting
so-
on that
so
mask.
maybe have a few, like, maybe two more reminders
You have to
throughout
have
the movie.
You have
but
to have
don't-
but you have to have a reason for him to go in. There has to be
Yeah, that'll-
some real world reason that he's putting this on and going
Yeah,
back.
but that'll be the prologue. I don't think, like, that's where I disagree with Marcus's kind of pitch, is don't throw us right in there. Give us a little bit of a
No,
prologue
but that's
first,
exactly what I'm trying
and
to
then
say.
an
yeah.
epilogue, not just, like, little...
Yeah, because if you just sort of have a corporate thing and it's the Animus, and the guy puts it on, like, an audience needs to be fed a reason why they care.
Yeah.
There has
Okay.
to be
And
some
all you need
little
for
bit
that
of.
is prologue and
Well,
epilogue.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
First
I'm
two.
overestimating the audience again. I'm assuming they'll pick it up out of context through
No,
his historical
no.
No, the thing is, you have to have a real world thing that even if it's as arbitrary as like, you know, there is this mystery MacGuffin thing, that historical artifact that could, like, we've read the diaries of Da Vinci and it could solve AIDS. Now we need to find it.
Yeah.
The end. Then you've got
Then
your.
there's a reason.
Then
yeah.
you need something, however arbitrary it is. for people to care. Like there has to be a motivation for the guy to go back.
No, fair, but then
but
for
but
the
I
rest of
agree
the
with
movie,
you
like,
that
keep it in
that
the
you
historical.
you fucking stay in there. You pop out at some point in the middle,
just to remind people.
Yeah, if you really
Like how they jacked
really
Neo out of the Matrix in the middle of the first Matrix.
yeah, if you really want, that's actually a good formula to follow. If you really want to like have the real world, then you have some sort of drama in the real world that's like the facility is under attack and it's a race against time for the guy.
Inception style.
Yeah, for the guy to get answers before whatever, like the descendants of the opposing faction, you know, before they fucking with their military might break down the door. You know, like he has to fucking get his answers. Then you've got to race against the clock. But it's really not that hard. Like the rest is just details.
Yeah.
You have to go out of your way to make that boring and shit.
And they did.
Yeah, they went way out of their way.
I mean, the Spanish Inquisition, I was like, that's hype. Like, I want to see that.
I did not expect that.
Yeah. No, when I saw the first trailer and I saw, they're doing the Spanish Inquisition and they're doing like the thing where they're running and they're doing all the Assassin's Creed things and it looks all cool and everything. I was like, yes, this is exactly what I want from an Assassin's Creed movie. And then they went to say, oh no, well actually like 70% of the movies in the real world with fucking Michael Fassbender just strapped into this thing for no apparent reason. And the plot goes to shit and, you know, it's supposed to be so straightforward, but then they pulled it up its own ass so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, historical Batman. That's the core pitch.
Well, of these video game movies coming out, are you actually looking forward to any of them?
Ready Player One.
Well, that's a movie based on a book, though.
Yeah, I'm speaking about movie based on video games.
Although I suppose if you look at your original definition,
Yeah, the original
it's a video
definition.
because it is, but it's a video game movie instead of it's not a video game adaptation.
Yeah.
It's a video game movie.
It's a video game movie.
I actually do like your definition better, and I think
Yeah,
that makes for
it's
better.
It's a much more lenient definition that
Yeah.
allows for good movies.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna say it's a movie that can use video games instead of like doing a shitty version of you being immersed in a game.
Yeah.
It can just do stuff with people using video games
So
or
it
video game
relates to
logic.
you.
Yeah. And like Ready
In
Player
exactly
One
the
VR.
same.
Yeah.
In exactly the same way, the Emoji Movie didn't.
Yeah, I think the other thing is a part of films is escapism and fantasy.
Yeah.
And I think that vision of VR, you know, with like haptic feed, you know, all the feedback stuff, like full body suits.
Racing of Monster Truck against Duke Nukem.
I mean,
know?
that is the dream for VR. Like when you look at
Yeah.
VR, that's what you want the technology to
Yeah,
eventually
but
become.
then they launch VR chat and it just gets filled with racist memes.
But yeah, I think, but I mean, that's why Ready Player One, I think, is, by your definition, basically, I haven't seen it, but
best
it
we
looks
can
like a
expect.
perfect
It
video
looks-
game movie
It
because
looks like the perfect video game movie to me
because it's a movie. It's a movie about
video game.
about what video games do for you
Yeah.
as a person, not
Yeah.
about trying to emulate a video game.
Exactly, and yet it does emulate a video game because that's the whole premise
Hmm.
of Ready Player One. You are in this game to beat it to get a better
But
life.
we're seeing someone do that, so
Yeah.
we're relating to him. So that whole problem of the empty protagonist
Yeah.
goes away
Exactly.
because there's a guy we can root for, and
Awesome.
he's
Yeah.
doing what we want to do, which is like escape into video games.
Nice. And on that note, I think
Beep.
we solved we solved why video game movies don't really work.
Yeah.
Marcus gave us a
Uwe
new
Boll.
definition that allows us to have good video game movies.
Good job.
And we discussed Uwe Boll. I think that's
I think that's
the
pretty
best
much.
we could have hoped for.
Yeah.
Oh, and we got to rip Ubisoft to shreds a bit, and EA.
And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
it's pretty much the
It's a perfect podcast.
Yeah,
And just
so-
quit while we were ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so recommendations. Mine for this week. You know what? Take her as go see Tomb Raider.
Ugh, Jason.
I'm gonna go.
Just imagine for a second. It's good.
That was difficult.
I know it's hard, eh?
Really hard.
The little yell she gives as she jumps to the other side of it.
Ah, okay. I've got a recommendation ready.
All right, so then you can fire off with it, Marcus.
Yeah, on Netflix, as of yesterday, because today is the 13th of March,
Yes, it is.
Annihilation is officially on our Netflix.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
13 March. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
I will give that a watch.
Yeah, Alex Garland, if you don't know, he made Ex Machina, which was phenomenal. And this movie did get a theatrical release in the States, but the studio got a bit wavery about an international release, so Netflix bought the international distribution rights, which means we get to watch an awesome movie that was built for theater at home in our own pants, or without pants,
Or in somebody
Preferably
else's
without
pants.
or in somebody else's
Ayo.
pants, or in any pants you
we
want
so
to.
desire.
Also, it's just a good, from reviews I've read that are not spoilery, it's a good female-fronted ecological science horror movie.
Nice.
And what more do you want? I mean, it's got Tessa Thompson in it.
Nice.
Oh.
It's got Natalie Portman in it. It's
Yeah.
got who else? Like, just it's
Yeah,
good.
It's got
I'm
the
keen.
it's got the woman that's in that show, Jane the Virgin.
Yes.
And I know this because she's apparently going to guest in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And I'm taking monetary bets that she's going to be
Jane
no
Diaz's
Diaz's
sister.
girlfriend.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be
girlfriend.
Diaz's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Calling it,
Yeah, that's probably right.
which is great because she's very likable. Martina's super into that show. Okay.
So, your...
There's not really much like around the 13th of March that's coming out. There's a little film called Shape of Water, which nobody saw.
Already?
Yeah, there's
Jeez.
just Ice League. I think it's the people that only want, like, they don't want to drink with it, like they just want the ice.
And they formed a whole league around that.
Yeah, they formed the whole league. And Disaster Artist. So like, there's a lot of good stuff. There's even actually of all of these, the one I'm going to buy first is A Trip to the Moon in its original 1902 colors.
Nice.
Nice.
Hot friggin' damn. I would also just like to point out that Justice League comes in a staggering variety of covers. And one of them is actually cool.
Oh.
That
me
actually
see
looks
that.
cool.
That actually looks pretty cool.
Let me see
And
that.
it,
then-
and it really points out how stupid Superman's suit looks without the red underpants.
Wait.
It's almost animated, yeah.
Why would you not do that?
Because, and just so you know, it's got like the normal cover as well.
yeah.
And then it has got, you may have seen me squinting at my phone.
Yeah, I saw you
It
doing
has
a
got
funny face.
the Walmart cover.
Oh, because that one comes with the little pins for you.
Oh, okay. I thought that was just part of the art, and it was the stupidest thing I'd ever seen.
No,
Oh, it actually comes with pins. That's actually kind of nice. But yeah, that's
But that animated one's cool, but it also really points out
Yeah.
the flaw behind the completely blue Superman suit with just the red cape.
yeah, that looks really.
It's
dumb.
got to at least have a darker shade around the crotch area.
It needs some kind of red belty thing at least. You need to break up.
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, if you at least darken it by like 7 shades, you know, to make it look like it's still blue, but it separates. That would work.
Yeah, but it would be less bad, but you need something that breaks the color entirely.
Yeah.
We're not getting into this again.
But yeah. Okay, so plugs, Dion.
My butt.
Marcus.
YouTube going strong. I've even got Thomas doing multiplayer with us. You should watch that series.
You can find us on all the places where you find podcasts that I've told you about before in the other episodes,
Including iTunes.
including iTunes.
That's where Beyonce lives.
Crappies.
Great.